Mackenzie critiques the Mackenzie Dick Rides a favorite anime. Welcome to my review of Kaiji Season 1 and Season 2. I know I promised to bring you this ages ago. It's here now, so I hope you enjoy it. The basic setup of the show is that the titular Kaiji is a gambler who is the guarantor of a confidant's debt. The confidant is unable to pay the debt, so the burden falls upon him to pay back the debt. He's then embroiled in an underworld high-stakes criminal gambling conspiracy. This description grossly undersells the show. When you hear the show is about gambling, it comes with a lot of preconceived notions baked in. But the show isn't simply about games like roulette and poker as you might imagine. The creator invents original games that have gambling added to them with the addition of stakes in a competitive scenario. This can mean taking seemingly simple games not traditionally associated with gambling and adding his own twist to them. With all this said, don't expect the anime to just be about competitive set pieces, including these games. There are scenarios that put Kaiji through in the show that really make you ponder just what value you attach to things you hold dear, to really important tangible things like your life, your limbs, and whether you'd be willing to put these on the line for personal gain. In this regard, it really focuses heavily on the psychological aspects of gambling and the fight for survival when you're in too deep. People here are playing for more than just money. The show is a brilliant cautionary tale about knowing where to draw the line in gambling. Funnily enough, at time of writing this review, a gambling ad campaign started in the UK telling people to stop gambling when it stops being fun. I believe the show is very topical in this regard. In many ways, Kaiji is a very relatable anti-hero because his struggle represents the very real struggles of the working class, grinding out a living to make ends meet, living from paycheck to paycheck but not much else. By no means does Kaiji suffer from the same problems as a traditional working class stiff. This is an MC who is a compulsive gambler, but the show does remind us that under the capitalist system we live under, we're tempted, almost encouraged to play in a game that is rigged heavily against us. Kaiji is very much a seinen, but presents his drama with the energy and dramaticism of a shonen. What sets it apart from other shows is the level of relatability. He is a good man who has his vices. Unlike most shonen anime where the MC is a completely virtuous underdog and is completely sympathetic, after a time your relatability to a protagonist who can fire energy from his hands against enemies who summon meteors from the sky tends to wane, but not in this case. You buy into this drama because the stakes are very real and hit closer to home because of the grounded nature of the show. The show tries to be antithetical to shonen, and this is supported by interviews the mangaka has given. In shonen, the MC's circumstances improve and friendships are made easily. They're constantly lecturing the villains about their own flawed logic. In Kaiji, the show breaks down the MC and never fails to use the villains as proxies to point out the vices of the MC himself. Sometimes the MC doesn't learn from those experiences and often makes the same mistakes. We root for these characters because we see our own fallibility within them, but this also serves to keep the drama unpredictable. At any point, the desire for self-preservation can lead a man to make questionable decisions. The music in Kaiji is brilliant. It serves mostly to heighten the sense of drama and intensify certain scenes. You may have heard the meme-worthy Zawa Zawa, where it's not just those sound bites. The music is also very reminiscent of the 80s. Kaiji feels like almost a gambling action hero, and he most certainly looks the part. I applaud that the show tackled gambling, because it can be hard to deal with it in an organic way because obviously it's a game of chance. The mangaka gives these games and gambles predetermined outcomes to tell a story. You expect immersion to break because these outcomes seem somewhat convenient for the character's progression, but every story could be considered that. An author knows a beginning, middle and end. Everything can be said to be convenient, so I don't use that word pejoratively here. What I will say is shows can often have contrived outcomes coming about in an inorganic way, but what Kaiji does beautifully is establishes that the protagonist can lose, and he does lose often. That likelihood always exists. He is certainly not an MC who could be accused of having plot armor. What Kaiji is most brutally honest about is the psychology of greed. While it acknowledges we all have our vices and can be pushed to greed by temptation, it also acknowledges that the systems that govern us can also encourage greed, to be more selfish, encourage us to take things for granted, and act against our better judgment. The first season felt very much like torture porn, like there was some glee involved in breaking down our titular character. It became very uncomfortable to watch. I referred to my previous point with mangaka using the villain as a proxy to give the MC life lessons. It makes you uncomfortable that the mangaka is trying to make an example of someone you're rooting for. It makes the drama interesting because a lot of these people are in these situations because of themselves. To anyone that says Kaiji's art style is not visually appealing, I would say it is the perfect advert for how distinctive the anime is in itself. It says, look at us, we're different. It makes a refreshing change from the style we're accustomed to in Japanese anime and manga. The mangaka is effective at providing catharsis in the show by breaking down, abusing and torturing the MC and several other characters before finally providing you relief and respite. However, the victories are never grandiose. Throughout the show, Kaiji becomes an inspiring figure. He represents the common man's desire to overcome the odds, a precedent set to show what the common man can achieve should they receive the opportunity. At one point in Kaiji, a simple yet inventive card game is said to represent a microcosm of society. I'd go one further and say the entire series represents a microcosm of society. It's no secret they go as far as to say outright at least once, but never utter it again. I believe this idea permeates the whole show, just like the games he plays. It's a metaphor for how rigged society is in general. No one sane would throw away millions to chance. It makes sense to whoever creates a system that they would want favourable outcomes. The rigged games in the series are also metaphors for the other systems that Kaiji commentates on, including our systems of governance that encourage the same behaviour. A great example would be the excessive tax on cigarettes, which is alleged to discourage smoking, but it's in the government's interest for people to keep smoking to make more tax revenue. It is by design profiteering from addiction, just as the house Kaiji plays against is profiteering from his compulsive need to gamble. I love how mental struggles are actualized on screens by bizarre, fantastical imagery. It's a novel way to represent the stakes involved, but also the mental obstacle that has to be overcome. My criticisms of the show are focused on the criminal underworld, gambling and human slavery aspects. I would have appreciated more world building to contextualize the goings on in the series and give it a sense of place. Just an idea of how something like this can go on. For example, corrupt police officers, corrupt government, but ultimately it's a very small gripe. Some other criticisms are some of the games drag on too long, some outcomes are reached through some sorts of convoluted means, they tangle themselves in overcomplicated ways, some outcomes could be reached more briskly. Season 2 felt less visceral than Season 1, which was certainly missed. Season 2 is heavily reliant on Kaiji falling back on his old ways and not learning from his experiences in Season 1. But this is ultimately forgiven because of how honest the show is to human nature. Sometimes we don't reform immediately, sometimes even the harshest lessons aren't enough. One final issue, and this isn't much of a criticism from me, but it's a distinct lack of female characters in the show. Well, I don't know if this is just a commentary on gambling being a predominantly male problem. Ultimately, the show is a fine balance of intense drama with powerful lessons at the heart of it, with a universally relatable main character. There's so much energy and emotion in the show which might seem unbelievable to people. It perfectly captures the thrill-seeking aspect of gambling, but always reminds us that the lows can cost us more than just money. I'd easily give this show a 9 out of 10. Thank you guys for watching. If you like that review, please let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you thought of Kaiji Season 1 and Season 2, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.